About this time, I saw a movie called The Secret and got turned on to an idea called the law of attraction. When I first saw The Secret, I thought that law of attraction might actually be the missing piece, the thing that was going to take me over the threshold. I'd learned when I was studying NLP about the advantages of towards strategies over away from strategies. And law of attraction echoed that in many ways. I discovered that The Secret was based in large part on the work of Esther Hicks, and I sought out and found some of her original work. I also found out that the version of The Secret that I watched originally was a second edition that had Esther's appearances and some of her unique content edited out of it. So I went back and found the original version of The Secret, watched that, resonated even more strongly with that, and added to that a lot of the books and videos that Esther and her husband Jerry have done on their own. As I understand it, the basic idea behind the law of attraction is that you get more of what you focus your attention on the most. I've believed for most of my life that we are conduits for divine creative source energy, and that we flow that energy through ourselves and out into the worlds that we inhabit. My understanding of law of attraction is that wherever we focus our attention, that's what we're flowing energy into, whether it's on a person or a situation or a specific aspect of someone's personality, even a perceived lack or problem is something that we can focus our attention on and flow divine creative source energy into, thus making whatever that something is bigger, realer, stronger, and more prominent in our experience. This map explained a lot of experiences that had confused me up to this point, and it began to look very much like this was going to be the catalyst that allowed me to finally turn the corner. I was rather surprised to discover that the more I practiced applying law of attraction in my everyday life, the more confused and frustrated I became. The general principle definitely checked out in my experience, and I very quickly began noticing that the very things about which I was suffering the most were things that I spent a lot of time focusing my attention on, trying to fix them. This backfired every bit as reliably as law of attraction indicated it would. Theoretically, catching myself in the act of focusing on what I did not want more of would allow me to redirect my attention to something that I did want. In practice, the actual redirecting part turned out to be so challenging as to be problematic. This was the source of my frustration and dissatisfaction. Occasionally, I would catch myself and ask myself, so what do I want instead? And I would get a clear enough answer that was compelling enough, and I could redirect my attention to that, and it would all unfold and flow smoothly. Much more often, I would catch myself focusing on something I didn't like, didn't want more of, creating more of it, knew that's what I was doing, would ask myself, so what do I want instead? And I would either get no answer at all, or I'd get an answer that was vague and underpowered and generally drowned out by an entire cacophony of voices insisting that this thing I didn't like and didn't want more of, I very well better be paying attention to it and understanding it and figuring it out and figuring out how I could stop it from happening, or else it was going to keep happening. This chorus of voices insisting that I needed to focus on the negative often made such a convincing case that it was as if my attention was super glued on to the thing I didn't want. And no matter how hard I tried to redirect it, it just didn't want to move. So I found myself in the unhappy and somewhat discouraging place of being much more aware of a particular way in which I was creating a lot of what I didn't want in my life, and yet not much more capable of changing that. I was still struggling with all of this when the big change that I had been seeking finally arrived. When it did, I didn't recognize it at first, and I didn't really understand it well enough to talk about it or share it for quite a while.